We'll do an elevated diagonal through ball. We'll call this one. Liverpool go top of the Champions League with a 4-0 win over former hero Xabi Alonso's Leverkusen.
Yeah, this was comprehensive. I mean, I know you're thrilled about this, Rob. This is big. And this is the kind of performance that gives you people a real sense that Liverpool can win this whole competition. Now, I don't think Leverkusen is the same as they were last year. The magic is gone. You know, they were maybe just as risky with some of the way that they played as last year as they are this year, but last year they would find a way through, except in that Europa League final when Adama Lukman went off for Atalanta and won in Dublin. It kind of felt like the Leverkusen push was going to be inevitable. They would find the 90th minute goal to equalize or to win. That did not happen because in that second half, Liverpool just turned it on and it clicked for them because Leverkusen was pretty good in that first half, Rob. It was pretty even, if maybe not shaded Leverkusen's way. But Liverpool has the weapons. Arne Slot seems to have solidified Liverpool a little bit more defensively, but they still have so much depth in that front three, that front six. Kind of tough.
I can't say enough about Schlott and the job he's done here in the first few months of his era at Liverpool. The pattern of it being a very tight game for a lot of it is a pattern we're seeing with this Liverpool side at the weekend against Brighton. Very tight. And then I think Schlott has made them very opportunistic when the opponent is there for the taking. They are, punishing. I mean, here in yesterday's game against Leverkusen, 0-0. And then there's 2 goals in 2 minutes, and then 4 goals over in 30 minutes. It was even. And then once they, kind of cracked the egg, it all came pouring out.
Yeah, I think for Leverkusen, the problem with that performance, right? I mean, this is not a team that's perennially in the Champions League, right? So you can kind of give them a pass. And Xabi Alonso is still a young coach. So it's not like you can hold them to an incredible standard because it's just not a lot of history to lean on. But if we're talking about the story of this Champions League, giving up those extra goals, right? If they lose 2-0 at Anfield, you go, okay, they lost 2-0 at Anfield. They lost to a very good team, first place in the Premier League. No skin off their nose. But you give up those extra goals, and now you're talking about goal difference being a problem down the line for Leverkusen in the Champions League in seeding, in whether or not you're top 8 and you get into the round of 16 directly, or if you have to play the extra series of games, the extra tie against somebody in that 9 through 24 groups. I mean, those are the things that we'll look back and go, man, if Leverkusen could have just held Liverpool to 2, it could be the difference between progressing in this thing and not.
Some absolutely beautiful goals yesterday. Before we move along from Champions League action today, actually, let's stay on yesterday. Manchester City downed by Manchester United's next man up.
Oh, you had to do it that way. I also want to talk about another American performance before we move on from the Champions League. So put a pin in that. But yes, I mean, Ruben Amorim, or however you're supposed to say it. I know that the English are going to say Ruben Amorim, except with an accent that I'm not doing right now.
Amorim.
Yeah, great showing for Sporting. Again, it feels like a little bit of self-fulfilling prophecy for Pep, who can't stop talking about the injury problems that he's got. Now, they're real. I'm not saying they're not real injury problems, but you are constantly talking about, we got so many injury problems. I would be surprised if X, Y, or Z happens. It's very strange to hear him talk so negatively about his team right now. Now, that's building in some excuses when the results don't go your way, but it's also sending a message to your team, hey, we really can't do this right now. This is really too tough for us. So they have the bad result on the weekend. They get knocked out of the League Cup a week ago, and now here they are losing in the Champions League to Sporting. Not just losing, but losing in that manner. And, of course, the subplot here, Robert, is with Amorim going to Old Trafford in a couple weeks' time. Of course, Victor Gyökeres is now linked to Manchester United as a potential goal-scoring option. Can't happen now. Not sure it'll happen in January, but that's going to be one of the stories around this.
I mean, that would be part of the playbook. I mean, Erik ten Hag did similar. He brought a lot of Ajax players over.
How'd that work out for them? How did that work out?
But I
Has
mean,
anybody
coaches
seen
coaches
Anthony?
have their favorites that follow them from job to job. I mean, that's not, out of bounds really in the in world football. But so if Elmarim were to bring some players, he'd be the one, right?
Yeah, Gyökeres would be the one. I am sort of fascinated by the Gyökeres situation because he's 26 years old. You're not buying him on the promise of maybe selling him down the line. And you could argue, I mean, look, he could score goals into his 30s. It's certainly possible. But what kind of timeline are you looking at if you are United's new leadership? And you're like, okay, well, how much is it going to take for us to get Gyökeres out of Sporting? Probably at least 50 mil. I'm not sure, but I mean, there's always the Manchester United tax. And so you wonder if it's worth it after all the money they spent. They're not Chelsea, but they were second to Chelsea in terms of the amount of money they spent, and they're not getting any return out of it or nothing significant. I mean, you could argue about Onana. We definitely know Anthony's a bust. There's several other players in that group that you're just like, whoa, what happened here? Do you really want to replicate that by going and getting Amorim and then asking him to bring along his Swedish striker who's going to cost you some money and doesn't have quite the same, length of promise in front of him? He's ready. He's fully baked at this point. Victor Gyökeres. Now he's scoring tons of goals. I think it's 23 goals on the year or something stupid like that. It's November. He's got 23 goals. He scores a stupid amount of goals, but he is the finished product. He's not going to get better from here. So you better be sure that it translates from the Portuguese league to the Premier League.
In my Liverpool voice, I'd say I'm happy for them to continue making the same sort of decisions over there on the red part of Manchester. Got
Okay.
another?
Yeah, no, let's throw in recognition for Malik Tillman and what he did for PSV Eindhoven yesterday. Threw for a touchdown, ran for a touchdown. I'm going to keep using this joke because he had a throw in that ended up being an assist, scored a goal of his own, actually had a second assist, could have scored again, I think. So a good day for PSV Eindhoven in that victory in the Champions League. Maybe not the marquee game and maybe not a game that you're like, oh, this is some sort of massive achievement. And what is PSV Eindhoven's ceiling going to be in this competition? Those questions are still out there. But if we're just taking the game for what it was, and it's, Spanish opposition. Say what you want about Girona and who they are and how many players they lost from last year, but that's still Spanish opposition, and PSV looked very good in that game.
Full slate of games here on Wednesday afternoon as well. Aston Villa, a name that we didn't expect to be saying in this sentence, with a multi-goal win. I think if they have a 3 or 4 goal win, will bounce back to the top of Champions League. Liverpool on top now. Liverpool facing Brugge this afternoon with a chance to return to the summit. Would you have thought that Emery and co would do that? An underrated coach, Emery, right?
Oh, absolutely. And last season was excellent. Now, did I think maybe they were going to have a Newcastle-like experience? Yeah, sure. I think that was kind of always possible. But Emery is a very good coach, and they know how they want to play. And I think, that if they do end up back atop the table with a 3-goal or more win today, because that's what it will take to either draw level with Liverpool on goal difference or jump ahead of Liverpool on goal difference, it'll be well deserved. I mean, it'll be well deserved. And I think it's a good story. And I think it is encouraging if you're a football fan, if you're a fan of this game right now, to see Villa be able to come up the way they have, because we're living in a world where your greatest hope, if you're not already established as one of the big 4 or 5 teams in the Premier League, your greatest hope is, please, oil rich country, come and buy us. Like that's literally the way that people think now in terms of, can we ever win anything? Can we actually win meaningful trophies? And that's not where Villa is. Now, I'm not saying that their ownership is fundamentally better than anybody else's, but there hasn't had to have been that kind of like, oh, the Qataris or the Emiratis or the Saudis or the whoever is buying us, Omanis. I mean, good for Villa to be able to do it this way.